Welcome, brave souls, to the chilling depths of horror and detail, the realm where the shadows whisper ancient secrets and nightmares come to life. I am your guide through the darkness, and on this channel, we delve into the spine-chilling world of Wendigo horror stories that will send shivers down your spine. First story. The Wendigo became my friend. I visited my parents' cabin by the lake months ago. It's not something I like to talk about. I lost some friends up there, gained one very important friend, a mentor, you could say, and I had every intention of having a fun, carefree trip. Fuck. I guess in some ways I did. So many memories in such a short period of time too. The sweet smells of people I never noticed before. You go by most people, and what do you smell? Some bullshit Old Spice or Axe spray of some loser trying to pick up a girl. But humans are so much more than these modern smells. They can smell like pine trees, fear and hatred, confusion and complete terror. There's a whole universe of sweet smells out there that most people miss. I didn't discover this until my trip to the lake. For the first day, everything went like I expected. My girlfriend and a couple of friends were having fun hiking and camping out. We were all having a blast until the rainstorm hit. I've never seen so much rain in my life. It came down in sheets, and we barely made it back to the cabin. Kevin tripped and fell. Bobby yelped and said he wanted to go home. My girlfriend made it back to the cabin first. She held the door open for everyone else. Once inside, we made sure all the windows were locked to prevent water from coming in. Trouble was, the roof started to leak. We lit candles because there was no electricity. Fuck, Kevin said. We're all going to drown. Calm down, Kevin, my girlfriend replied. It will take months for the cabin to fill up at this rate. We're going to be fine. Kevin was completely right, except water wouldn't be his demise. Bobby didn't say much. He looked like a scared child in his corner, and he leaned forward on a rickety chair, biting his nails. We were all lost in our own thoughts. Especially me, I think. I was having thoughts I had never experienced before. Thoughts of devouring everyone in the room in a rush of blood and destruction of the flesh. I even started to look at my girlfriend that way, which worried me. They were all trapped here, my girlfriend, Bobby, and Kevin. The rain was coming down even harder, and this little group had nowhere to go. They were completely at my mercy, and I couldn't be happier about this fact. Of course, one had to be strategic. I told them I was tired from the ride up here. I got up, kissed my girlfriend on the cheek, and went to my room. It was the largest in the cabin, and I had it all to myself. As I lay in bed, I felt something deliciously dark take over. I knew without having to confirm with some meaningless scientific instrument, the Wendigo inhabited the room along with me. Hello, Jason. How are you feeling today? The Wendigo asked. Its voice was gravelly, a little off-kilter. Okay, I responded. A little down. Could it be that you have a craving for flesh? I thought about his question. Really thought about it. Some philosophers considered suicide to be the greatest philosophical question, but I disagreed. The human action most on my mind was whether or not to rend flesh from bone. The horned thing stared at me from across the room with piercing hollow eye sockets. I felt a feeling which seemed so lush and dangerous that I knew it wasn't good for me. I knew civilization was a sham, an abyss of houses, roads, and stop signs layered with bureaucracy and hazy ambitions to reach its peak. Illusions. I'm glad you've come to see the light, the Wendigo said. I stood up, joints stiff, head swimming, but not in a bad way, in a pleasant I'm drunk and shouldn't be driving sort of way. What happened next I don't really like to talk about. It felt good though. I killed Kevin out back with an axe he used for chopping wood. And Bobby? Death by kitchen knife. I ate them both. I picked their bones clean, leaving them so bare and white you could put them on display in a museum. My girlfriend looked at me with such unbelievable horror that I knew I couldn't devour her like I did Kevin and Bobby. I ran away, into the woods. I've killed and devoured so many things in the wilderness that I've lost count. After the cabin massacre, I lived in a cave in the woods for a couple of weeks, maybe a month. The Wendigo would visit me, tell me tales of days long gone. I'd stare into its hollow eyes, get a fuzzy feeling, and I'd have to go on the hunt again. So for a while, the Wendigo became my friend. I was sad and deflated when it was all over. I'm back in the abyss of houses again, trying to think of an ambition that would excite me as much as what I did in the woods that day. Nothing yet. There's not even the thrill of getting caught. I know the Wendigo will protect me, erase any evidence of my dirty deeds. I have faith in that. Second story. Don't hide from cryptids in Alaska. They're worse here. I've lived in Alaska my entire life. I live in one of the more populated parts of the state. I won't fully disclose for my safety. Though, I've seen a lot of things, and I'm not even very old. I've seen damn near everything AK had to offer. Well, I thought I had anyway. Turns out, cryptids are a lot more angry up here. We have the classic Sasquatch, otter people, dogmen, serpents, our own version of the boogeyman, Wendigos, and even skinwalkers, believe it or not. I've had the displeasure of being hunted by two of these. Take a wild guess. It started when I was at my friend's house, us sitting at the ridge on the border of their property. Where we sat had a trail leading up and a light pole. It was around 11 at night, but Alaska winters get dark. We were sat under the yellow light from the pole when I heard a branch snap and snow crunch. I assumed it was a moose, so I told my friend to keep their eye out. They nodded, and we continued to talk. A few minutes later, the snow crunched again and I felt my heart freeze. Now I'm a pretty paranoid person, but this was well before it had really taken effect. I'm still unsure which of the two cryptids it was, but it had infrasound. Infrasound is something big cats and other predators use to activate a prey's fight or flight, usually ending up in the prey freezing. According to whatever the predator was, I was its next meal. I grabbed my friend by the hood when I stood up and ran down the trail, pulling them along with me. They groaned in protest and confusion until I told them something was wrong. We ended up going inside that night, and I didn't get a wink of sleep. I was too afraid of what was waiting outside. Fast forward to a few months later, it was July. I was sat with my window open and writing on my computer. I was home alone as I often am, but that didn't bother me. As I typed on my laptop, I felt something strange. That intense feeling of being watched. I tried to ignore it, but it overtook my body. I looked out the window to the edge of my driveway, next to the pond, and there it stood. A pale gray, malnourished, disgusting-looking creature. Sunken in eyes, slightly protruding teeth, and on all fours nonetheless. Though, this creature had a human-like body, aside from the twisted appendages. I froze in my spot when it caught my eye. I shoved my computer away from me and got up to crank in my window. Once my window started moving, so did it, inching closer to my home with lanky, broken-looking legs. I wound my window up enough, flipped the lock, and pulled down my curtain. That was the first night I had ever spent cowering in my bathtub with a pocket knife and a blanket. I hadn't seen the creature again until later in the year, winter. I was taking the garbage down to the end of my driveway when I heard the inhuman growling. It sounded like a dog had smoked 20 packs a day and tried to growl at me. I wasn't taking any chances and sprinted up to my porch, slamming open my door and locking every lock. My mom looked mortified, as was I. This happened on a few separate occasions. But this wasn't even all of it. I would walk to the bus stop in the mornings, so obviously this could be an issue. One morning, my cat, Fergus, had followed me down to the bus stop. I was petting him as I stood next to a stop sign. Now, Fergus is the sweetest cat I have ever met. He didn't bat an eye at dogs, moose, other cats, nothing. He was a badass and a sweetheart in one cat. Imagine my surprise when he spun around, arched his back, and started hissing and spluttering. I was horrified. This beefed-up Maine Coon cat was hissing into the darkness at 6 in the morning. Thankfully, the bus had come to my aid and I got on immediately. Fergus passed away recently, so I'm a little nervous about not having that warning next time. Now, these next few experiences all happened in the span of a week. It started with me sitting in my living room watching some show when I heard something on the porch. This was before I had a security system, so I couldn't really see it. There's a small, obscure window at the top of my door, but I'm just shy of tall enough to see out it, so I had to go by sound. I slowly crept around my house, making sure each door and window was locked up. I hurried my dog into my parents' room and into the bathroom. He likes hiding in the shower, so he didn't really mind. Though, when he started snarling, which he never does, I almost started sobbing. The layout of my parents' room is you walk in. There's their bed, 2 windows on either side of the bed, and the bathroom next to one of the windows. My mom put the spare mattress we had up in front of that window. I hadn't locked it. I frantically dialed up my mom's number and called her quietly while hugging my dog. I was crying. She ended up coming home a few minutes later. When she went to get me out of her bathroom, there were scratch marks on the wall. Something had tried to get in. This was when my paranoia spell started. I would frequently have episodes of pure irrational fear, usually ending in me sleeping in my bathroom. A few times, like this one, it was warranted. I was once again sitting in my living room watching a show when I heard something in the carport. The wall behind me was the one connecting to said carport. I got up, walked closer to the TV, and turned it down, listening to each thudding step of the thing outside. I began to shake and spiral into a panic attack. It slammed on one of the walls, and I booked it to my bathroom. I locked myself inside with my knife, phone, and charger. I wasn't prepared to hear it behind me, through the wall to my backyard. The only way to get in is hop the fence, unhinge the door, or crawl over the massive boxes blocking off the back porch. I didn't care which it had done, but I was mortified nonetheless. This thing had definitely known where I was in the house. Eventually, it stopped and must have left, so I left the cramped room to check on my dog. He was fine, though shaken. The last time I had seen it had by far been the worst. I haven't had near as close of an experience since. I was on a Discord call with my friends, eating food and chilling in my kitchen. I was having a good time when I had the overwhelming feeling I was being watched. I knew exactly what it was, so I looked down to the bottom corner of my back door. My back door has a wide window encompassing pretty much the entirety of it, with a curtain that it came with. Peeking out from the sliver of room the curtain left was sunken in eyes and gray skin. It was staring up at me. I grabbed my phone and ran to the bathroom for safety once more. After not hearing it for a while and having my friends calm me down, I went to my room. I knew the window was locked and closed. I felt a little bit safer there. Boy, was I wrong. I had been halfway asleep when I heard ungodly scratching at my window. I was obviously confused and scared at the sound. When I peeled back my curtain, I was faced with that ungodly thing, with its fingers protruding through the window. I dropped the curtain and ran to my parents' room into the crawl space in their closet, knowing this thing couldn't find me there. I had closed the door to the room itself and the closet on my way in. When I heard the mattress blocking my parents' window fall, careening onto their bed, with terrible scratching and snarling. I heard my dog going crazy outside the door. This disgusting thing was stalking around my parents' room looking for me. I heard each deliberate step, each gruff and breath of air. I was frozen on the ladder of the crawl space. I hadn't even turned the light on, which would be my saving grace. I heard the closet door whine as it was opened. This thing could open doors. It sniffed around my parents' clothes. I heard it step on the slab of wood, keeping me hidden. I don't know how it didn't find me. Maybe it was the smell of the carpet, but it eventually booked it and left. I stayed down there almost the entirety of the night until I heard my mom come home. That was the last time she left me home alone late at night, especially during winter. Third story. Have you tasted human flesh? I was 14 years old when I first met the Wendigo. The Algonquin-based Native American tribes believed Wendigos were, indeed, people. It is commonly known that the Wendigo is a human that has consumed human flesh. However, it is not commonly known that the act of cannibalism was considered to make a person vulnerable to an evil spirit, allowing them to be possessed and become a Wendigo. A mental illness is even named after it. Wendigo psychosis is the need to consume human flesh as food. While some consider it to be made up, there is evidence to suggest its existence. A man called Swift Runner, in the 1800s, killed and devoured his family, despite the fact that he was 25 miles from food. More recently, in 1981, Issei Sagawa killed and consumed a woman, driven by desire, curiosity, maybe something more? The Wendigo legend is considered nothing more than a spook story. After all, the Wendigo is now only a scary monster, as detached from us as vampires or werewolves. After all, there is no one that is truly starving in the beautiful, gluttonous United States. Why would we fear consuming each other? We whet our appetites on gleaming, luscious meals day after day. In the dead of winter, surrounded by ice and snow and the howling of the wolves, we have our heating systems to keep us warm. But the Wendigo came to me that day, but not how I would expect. No, he did not lumber out of the woods, 20 feet tall and ghastly thin, supporting heavy antlers and a mouthful of ravenous teeth. He appeared to me, in the mirror, as myself. Because, at the heart of it, all monsters come from people, one way or the other. I stood in front of the mirror. I was plump with full cheeks then, almost pretty. He spoke to me with my own mouth, with my own voice. But my eyes were not my own. There was darkness. Gears of shadow clicked and rolled behind my irises. Have you ever tasted something worth the price? I was startled, of course. Who wouldn't be? I did not know what he was. Only research and agonizing would bring me to his name. What? I asked. I feared insanity. Maybe. What I had just said seemed to come from outside of me. Have you ever chased down your prey? He told me. Sunk your teeth into the body? Consumed their flesh? Every molecule? I was scared, of course. But what the Wendigo offered was almost intriguing. Perhaps they only come to those they know will be receptive to their call. No, I haven't, I told the mirror, and watched the spirit go back behind my eyes. You grow fat on food not worth the boxes that contains it. But flesh, when you eat it alive, it is not only flesh, it is power, sweet and thick, the best meal you will ever eat. He left me then. I cried. Yes, you may mock me, but I cried. I was a weak little girl then, but the Wendigo was not wrong. What he offered me, what he offered my soft little body, was power, and power was a banquet compared to everything I had ever eaten. After months of thought, I decided to accept him. There were growing pains. I will not dispute that. I laid in bed. The Wendigo raged inside of me, growling, roaring, screaming. Pain racked my body for days on end, like a storm of ice raging inside of me. He was forgiving but not kind. He consumed my own flesh in place of what I did not eat. Chunks of it came off, leaving only clean bone behind. 2 weeks later, I awoke hungry. It was dark. I checked the clock. It was around 3:30 a.m. It was much too early for my parents to be awake, so I snuck out of bed. Once, I might have feared shadows, scary men in hockey masks peering around corners. But the Wendigo inside me assured that I would be the biggest threat in any room. There are benefits as well as costs to becoming a monster. I went into the kitchen, and I consumed. I ate everything I could reach. My teeth, which seemed sharper than usual, tore into packages and bags. I ate chips and cookies and candy. Wrappers and packages fell to the floor. I ate half a container of ice cream. I ate handfuls of potato salad. I tore open a container of raw beef for burgers and gorged myself on it. After I was done, I carefully cleaned up the mess and went back to my room. My stomach stuck out. Grotesque. Unnatural. I looked several months pregnant. I stared at myself in the darkness. My eyes were colorless in the low light. My hair hung like curtains around my face. Was it an illusion, or was I taller? Was it an illusion, or were my cheekbones sharper, teeth larger? Why would you eat that garbage? The Wendigo howled at me in my own voice. I was hungry, I responded. Power, the Wendigo snarled. Power. Power is what you want. I was hungry, I told him. I was wrong, of course. Only power would truly satisfy me, Only one meal would be worth it. I looked towards my door. I saw myself in profile in the mirror. My eyes were bulging out of my head. My mouth was hanging slightly open, teeth still coated a bit with the blood from the raw beef. Outside of that door, my parents slept, unaware. They will be worth it, the Wendigo told me. I was hungry, I repeated. I love my parents. I went to sleep. Over the next few weeks, the Wendigo ate up my body. This was my punishment. He ate me like candy, giant chunks of me just falling off my body. He roared in my organs. He froze me from the inside out, a monster from the depths of the purest night, the deepest cold. It was almost beautiful. I looked in the mirror a few times. I couldn't recognize myself. The monster inside was making me different. I was taller. I was thinner, yes. My ribs stood out. The knobs of my spine were visible. My wrist bone was behind only a small layer of skin. I could bite through it, and my teeth would reach the bone. I would not devour my parents. I would not consume power, not yet. The Wendigo was inside of me, but he needed me to eat the flesh to truly take over. I wondered how the power would taste. I wonder, Nosleep, if you know where I am writing you from. My parents were very upset. They did not understand me and the Wendigo. They did not understand what I was becoming, what I would become. They told me anorexia was consuming me. Anorexia. So insulting. They were wrong. It was all him, and he was incredible. When they took me away, I bit the hand of a man wearing white clothes. His blood tasted electrifying on my teeth. I had not eaten garbage food for weeks. I had not eaten for weeks. The blood awoke my hunger. I write you this letter from the institution they sent me to. Someday, they will let me out. Fourth story. I'm part of Cryptid Intervention Task Force. There's a lot of dark things in this world that many people don't know about. These things don't care about us. They don't care about our lives. To them, we are just pests running around in their land. You see, I'm part of a cryptid task force. We're pretty well funded and have the best gear and training money can buy. A lot of the guys here are former Tier 1 operators from all over the world. Some SAS, MARSOC, Delta, PJ, Spetsnaz, you get the idea. Our job is to be the wall that separates their world from ours. We get deployed to various areas where there is a surge in cryptid activity. Number of missing hikers or campers spiking. We get sent in. Strange sightings? We investigate. More often than not, our encounters are to neutralize the threat above all else. And trust me, we've adopted a pretty simple yet catchy motto here. Nothing bullets cannot cure. Now I'm going to be straight up. I do not recommend anyone to go hunting for any of these things. This isn't a movie or a TV show. These things will kill you, eat you, and shit you out without hesitation. You do not know how many wannabe cryptid hunters we've had to scrape up while we're dealing with an active target. Also, just as a side note, being in this task force doesn't mean you get to encounter every single cryptid. There's many I haven't engaged that other teams have had the fate of dealing with. Now here's a little about me. Spent some time in Force Recon, been around the world, seen my fair share of shit and how brutal we as a species can get, and trust me, that shit stays with you. After I did my time, I decided to get into private contracting. One thing led to another, and through word of mouth, I ended up in this outfit. On to what I feel many of you are waiting for. Where I'm stationed at the moment, the main groups I deal with are werewolves and stag/deer people. Lately, these groups have been quiet, with the deer people being the most peaceful of the two. The werewolves, we've been able to create a set of boundaries with them. You see, the werewolves themselves, when not transformed, are off-the-grid type of individuals. They've told us they would keep to themselves and help police their own if any try to cross the line. Lately, though, we've hearing that they've been sightings of large bipedal creatures skulking the outskirts of towns bordering the forest. Missing persons, and even one story from a family to their local PD about how their children witnessed their father being dragged away by the dog people. We decided to pay the local alphas a visit. It was an 8-man team, with a platoon-sized force on standby as QRF in case the proverbial shit hit the fan. We loaded up into our MRAP and drove off into the forest. It was a quiet ride, save for the occasional story or joke being tossed around. I myself was nodding off and catching up on some extra hours of sleep before being nudged awake by the feeling of the vehicle coming to a stop. The hatch opened and we all moved out and set up a perimeter. We were in front of a makeshift shanty town made out of abandoned RVs and mobile homes. As we approached them, we spotted movement through one of the windows. Our CO told us to stand down and walked forward with his hands up. He only took 10 steps before a man built like Arnold Schwarzenegger from Predator stepped out from one of the mobile homes. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and my grip on my weapon tightened. The air was filled with tension as we watched as our commanding officer looked up at this giant, then laughed. The man laughed as well, and they embraced each other with a firm handshake, with an audible, "How have you been, you bastard?" being heard. I relaxed a bit, as did the rest of the team. The man beckoned us all closer, with our CO nodding that it was all clear. We found out that apparently there has been a pack of younger werewolves running about, causing havoc and disturbing the peace of the general area and trying to gain strength, which connects them to a string of missing individuals. We reported back to base, and we along with 3 other teams were tasked with a SAR op deep into the pack's territory. Our secondary objective was to subdue or neutralize the younger pack. To be honest, I was hoping to talk these guys down, but knowing that this pack was filled with hot heads trying to make a name for themselves as the new big bad on the block, I doubt we were going to be able to. At 1,745 hours, we moved out, pushing past the boundaries placed by the treaty some years ago. It was unnerving to say the least. Don't get me wrong, we are all solid guys, each seeing our share of chaos and brutality that would swallow the soul of a regular individual. But this wasn't storming an insurgent stronghold or securing a VIP. One wrong move and the entire op could go tits up and a lot of good men would die. That's when our vehicle got hit. MRAPs are designed to take IEDs like a champ and keep rolling until the occupants are out the kill zone. But I don't think they accounted for the factor of nearly 300 pounds of pure muscle slamming into it at 35 to 50 miles per hour. It sent our vehicle tumbling onto its side, and me hanging on for dear life. In the initial days of recovering from the impact, I heard the metal on the back door straining, then saw it come flying right off. The beast then peeked its head in and eyed all of us, as if picking from a large buffet table. Its bright yellow eyes locked onto mine and I froze. I couldn't bring my weapon up, nor could I call out. All I could do is lay there as this hulking monstrosity reached for me. Gunfire rang out, and I saw the impact of 3 rounds into its lower abdomen. It howled and stumbled back. Our CO had his sidearm out, and he pumped the last 7 rounds into its upper chest and face. It fell onto the dirt road, writhing in pain, smoke visibly coming out of the entry points. Fun fact, our rounds are silver-tipped, and for our sidearms, silver-tipped hollow points filled with holy ash. We exited the vehicle and watched as our commander, I'll call him Conrad, dispatched the bastard with 2 rounds from his rifle to the dome. That's when the gunfire started ringing out in the distance and the howls. The radio in the MRAP came to life, with a frantic voice on the net. This is Wolfpack 3-6 to Apache Flight. Confirm call sign. Wolfpack 3-6, this is Black Raven over. Solid copy Black Raven. Request air support at these coordinates. All units in the area. Message follows. Nirvana. I say again. Nirvana. Damn it, Black Raven, we need support. Copy that, coming in hot. They're closing. Oh God. Oh God. Jesus Christ. OSH. The gunfire reached a crescendo, only to be drowned out by the sound of a hellfire impacting the area. We sat there in stunned silence, looking at one another before Conrad interjected. Zweihander, this is Hunter Actual. All bodies accounted for. We are still Oscar Mike to objective. How copy? Zweihander to Hunter Actual. Solid copy on all. Be advised Wolfpack is down. Rendezvous with Eagle and Dragoon 3 clicks from your position.
Solid copy Zweihänder. Hunter Aktual out.
Conrad looked at us all. Keep your head on a swivel, boys. We're in their country now. Needless to say, the hellfire probably helped our rendezvous with Eagle and Dragoon more than anything. After grouping up into a sizable force, we pushed forward, locating the lair of the pack. They were holed up in a cave with makeshift barricades around the entrance. We set up positions around it, our COs drawing up a plan to neutralize the hostiles and hopefully save any of the missing people taken over the past week, if they weren't turned. That's when we saw someone walk out. He looked no older than 19, but he walked as if he was better than us. He stood at the entrance, with several others coming up behind him. He called out to us, "All right, we know why you're here, and trust me, you don't want to fuck with us. We can take all of you out easily. There are more of us than you in here. Too many bodies for your bullets." As per protocol, our retort was for him and his compatriots to stand down, come in for questioning and judgment by the Elder Alphas, and to release anyone they held captive. The look on the kid's face was one of disgust and contempt, as if we bruised his ego. He flipped us off and crouched down on all fours and began to transform. Fucking idiot, I thought. Before he could even finish, a shot rang out. A silver-tipped 7.62 by 51 millimeters round impacted his forehead, splitting it like a melon. The silence that followed was unnerving. The other individuals looked at his body, then at us, and dropped to their knees, hands in the air. Conrad looked at me, motioning for me and several others to move in, secure, and search the compound. I got up and moved, my rifle leveled and ready, moving swiftly towards them, heel to toe, heel to toe. I got a good look at them, all kids. Some were crying, others were shocked into silence as we zip-tied them. After they were secured, we moved into the cave itself. I tossed a flare in, shouting out, "Siard, anyone in here?" We got a response, albeit a weak one. We moved to the sound and found our missing individuals, all 8 of them. 5 males, 3 females, all obviously shook up and in need of aid. We moved them out onto waiting MRAPs heading back to base. From what we gathered, we killed the head honcho of the pack, and their strongest members were taken out by the Hellfire. The survivors we questioned all said that the kidnapped individuals were set to be turned and added to their numbers. We recovered the bodies of Wolfpack and gave them the burial they deserved. That's all I can say for now. I gotta go. We got reports of something big happening and command needs all hands on deck. Take care, all of you. And remember, nothing bullets cannot cure. 5th story. Your friendly neighborhood Wendigo. Before I begin, I'm a 16-year-old male. About 3 years ago, I was in Virginia visiting family over summer. We were right outside the DC area and staying in a 2-story house near the freeway. On the other side of the freeway was a forest. So my mom, her boyfriend Eric, and I were all staying with Eric's parents. We had brought some night vision binoculars and decided that tonight was the perfect time to use them. So, after dinner, we gear up and head out. We pass under the freeway and head into the woods. When we get about 5 minutes into the forest, we set down our bag and take out our binocs. My mom looks around with them for a while, seeing a few squirrels here and there. She gets tired of them and passes them to me. I look around for a while, being careful not to look at the freeway for fear of being blinded. I spot something behind a tree about 50 feet to our left. I concentrate on it, trying to figure out what it is. It looks like a pale, bald anorexic man looking straight at us from behind the tree. I get a bit uneasy, but I'm hesitant to believe it's really there. I ask Eric to take a look, just in case. To my despair, he sees it too. He describes it much the same way I did. Now, Eric is a former amateur boxer and I train MMA almost every day, but neither one of us wants to stick around with that thing. We start heading back to the house, crossing under the freeway. We take another look behind us as a car comes by. All 3 of us see glowing eyes lit up by the headlights on the other side of the freeway. We say fuck that and head back to the house. When we get back, Eric's parents are asleep and my mom and Eric go upstairs to the guest room. There's only one guest room, so I have the couch downstairs. I'm a little too excited after seeing the thing in the woods, so I end up staying up all night. Around 3 a.m., I'm watching TV and start hearing footsteps above me. I immediately remember our earlier encounter and panic a little. I try to calm down and tell myself it's just one of the dogs, or maybe someone who couldn't sleep. I keep hearing the footsteps for a while, until I hear a doorknob jiggle. I find it weird that they're trying to open a locked door, but try to ignore it. They stop, walk around for a few more minutes, and then it's quiet again. I stay up until the sun starts coming up and then pass out. My mom wakes me up and I remember the footsteps from the night before. I describe what happened and ask if one of them got up at any time. She says no, and I think it must have been one of the dogs. That is, until she tells me the room above me is the office. No one was in the office and the door stays locked at night. My heart sinks as I piece it all together. I don't know if it was that thing for sure, but I think it was. I've done a lot of research since then, trying to figure out what that thing was that night. I found 2 creatures that seemed to match it. I think it was either a skinwalker or Wendigo. Whichever one it was, I'm just thankful that door was locked. I know I wouldn't be able to fight that thing no matter how tough I am. Sixth story. We don't talk to the thing in the woods. I used to love the outdoors. Camping, hiking, hunting, fishing, you name it, I was taking an opportunity to participate in it. My girlfriend was the same. We had bonded over our mutual love of nature and the peace that it brought. Now, I'm terrified to spend any time in the woods. That thing I heard there, its voice still haunts my dreams. We decided on a weekend trip to the Mogollon Rim of northern Arizona. It was going to me, my girlfriend Allison, my friend Amanda and her husband Dave, and my sister Maria with her boyfriend Gabe. The last two didn't like the idea of roughing it in a tent, so we all went in on a nice cabin in a secluded part of the forest near a lake. The day of the drive, we all packed into my SUV and began the hours-long journey up into the mountains. After what felt like days, we came upon the turnoff given to us by the man who had rented us the cabin. It was at least another hour along uneven dirt road into the depths of the forest before we found ourselves pulling up to our rather luxurious cabin. I couldn't hide my disappointment. I was hoping for something a little less modernized. Maybe without natural plumbing or electricity. Maria and Gabe were thrilled, and the others seemed excited, too. So, I told myself I'd enjoy this little slice of heaven out in the middle of nowhere. After all, how often would I get to stay in a place like this? We unpacked our things, found the key where the text said it would be, and went inside to find another note. The septic system was emptied a few days ago, and the cabin hasn't been used since. You'll find fuel for the generator in a shed about 5 minutes walk from the cabin. Keep the doors locked and the lights off after 10. Otherwise, you might get unwanted attention. I hope you enjoy your stay. Ernest. I read it out loud and laughed. We've got indoor toilets, power, and all the other modern amenities we could ever ask for. I hope no one thinks we're roughing it out here, I teased. My sister just rolled her eyes. Dave and I finished unpacking things and gathered up fishing rods for everyone. The lake's a 20-minute hike from here. Anyone feel like going fishing? Gabe and Maria declined, but the rest of us made the journey out to the lake, and much to our surprise it was empty. Got the whole thing to ourselves, Dave said with a slap to my back. Hope the fish are biting. We spent the entire day out on the lake, laughing, fishing, drinking, and having a great time. After several wonderful hours, we collected our catches and began the hike back to the cabin. By the time we had gotten back, the sun was disappearing behind the mountains, giving us just enough light to find our way back to the cabin without injury. Upon arrival, we noticed the lights were already on. Guess they got the fuel for the generator, Allison said. Amused, didn't think they'd even leave the cabin. That night, we fried up our fish and settled in for a pleasant evening. Even Gabe and Maria enjoyed the fish. The trip was already looking great. We continued this way for 3 days. Everyone enjoying the trip in their own way, with Dave, Allison, Amanda, and myself often leaving early in the morning for a hike, or to spend some time out by the lake, and Gabe and Maria hanging out at the cabin. Every night we'd kill the lights at around 9:45 to follow the wishes of our host, and every morning we'd be up bright and early for another adventure. Everything was turning up aces. We were all having a great time. Then, the fourth night came. Most of us had spent the day on a 6-hour hike through rough trails, and we were beat. We had crashed early, reminding Gabe and Maria that the lights needed to go out by 10 so we could avoid things like bears. They rolled their eyes, but agreed. I woke at 2:30 in the morning to the sound of panicked knocking. Slowly, I moved to sit up, but I felt Allison's hand seize my shoulder as she looked at me and shook her head fiercely. Hello? I heard a man's voice call from the front door of the cabin. Hey, I'm sorry to bother you all so late. It's just, your light was on and I'm kinda lost. I'm trying to find my friends at the trailhead. I think I got turned around somewhere. Hello? The knocking resumed. I opened my mouth to speak, but Allison covered it, whispering, "We don't talk to the thing in the woods." I blinked, staring at her in shock. After a while, the knocking stopped, and Allison appeared to relax a little. Until we heard the sound of something gently tapping the window of our bedroom. As I turned my head to look, Allison seized it and kissed me passionately. The tapping continued for several long minutes, during which she held that kiss in my face so that it remained away from the window. When the tapping stopped, she let me go. Her face was ghostly white. "It knows we're here now. It won't stop. It's going to come back?" "What is?" I asked, confused. "The thing in the forest." "What is it?" I pressed. She just shook her head and rolled over to go back to sleep. "We need to leave tomorrow," she muttered. I didn't sleep much the rest of the night. The sound of the man at the door and his desperation, Allison's insistence that we ignore it, all of it seemed so strange to me. Like there was a piece of this puzzle I was missing. When I finally woke from my restless slumber, Amanda and Dave were already up and making coffee. As I arrived, Dave turned to me and handed me a mug. "You tell Allie a scary story last night or something?" "She's spooked. White as a sheet. Never seen her like that." I blinked, staring at my coffee and looking up at Dave. He seemed chipper as ever, as though nothing strange had happened the evening prior. "You didn't hear all that knocking last night? The guy who got lost?" I asked, baffled. "Nah, Mandy and I were out like lights. Must have slept well past dawn, too. Man, that hike took a lot out of us. We were thinking of taking it easy tonight, you know? Maybe just head out to the lake and spend some time together." I nodded, looking back down at my cup. "Allie said she wants to go home." I murmured, "Well, that's no good." Amanda called from behind. "I just got done talking to her. She said you guys had a bit of a fright last night, that there was a bear or something trying to get in, or something." I replied, shaking my head. "Look, I think it's a good idea. We should head back into town, maybe just go home." Dave frowned. "We paid a lot of money to stay here for a week, man. We've only stayed 4 nights. Can we at least stay one more so it feels like we gained something? I know you've got the car and all, but I think maybe Allie just got spooked. We shouldn't rush to leave." I sighed. There was no way I was convincing these two to leave, but maybe Maria and Gabe would be willing to listen. Just because your little girlfriend had a bad dream doesn't mean we should all pack up and run away. Maria stated flatly, "We're having a great time out here." When I found Allison, she was still very shaken. Her eyes locked in the middle distance, staring deep into the tree-line at something that wasn't there. "Hey," I murmured, causing her to jump. "Sorry, can we talk?" She turned to face me full on. "No one wants to leave, do they? They all believe it's nothing, that I'm overreacting to a bear or something." I nodded, and she sighed dejectedly, finding a seat on one of the chairs on the porch. "I'm not crazy," she said darkly. "I've heard about this thing. My granddad and dad used to me stories about the thing in the forest. They told me to never say anything to it, never acknowledge it or look at it, because if I did and it recognized me, it would take me away. It would take me away and steal everything about me." She shivered. The way they told the stories, it was like they had seen something like that happen. She looked to me, tears forming in her eyes. "Remember how I told you my dad died when I was young? That he was mauled by a bear?" I nodded. "He wasn't. That thing got him. It got him and took everything that made my dad himself away. It left only what it didn't need." I blinked as she told me this story. How do you know that? How can you be sure it wasn't a bear or something? I pressed. Because I heard him. The night after the search teams found what was left of him, I heard my dad calling to us. We all did, she whispered. And my grandpa held me close, and he told me we don't talk to the thing in the woods. We need to leave, she stated again. We can't stay here. I sighed, nodding. How about I get us a motel back in town? It's only a 3-hour drive, and I can come back for the others tomorrow. She shook her head desperately. They won't be here tomorrow, don't you see? It's going to take them. They won't listen. Allie, look, I get what you're saying. You're scared, and it sounds like whatever happened was very traumatic. I can take you away from here, but I can't just force the others to leave, too. She nodded in defeat and looked to me. I'll stay tonight, but I want you to stay with me, and I want you to listen to everything I tell you. I offered a reassuring nod and took her hand. You have my word. We spent the day at the cabin. Allison spent time reinforcing the bedroom door with planks of wood, much to the amusement of everyone else. I followed along with her, providing her whatever help I could, and by the time night fell, our room was a veritable fortress. Don't talk to the thing in the woods, she told everyone before we killed the lights and went to bed. 2:30 a.m. The door thundered with desperate knocking. Hello? Please. I need help. Hello. Come on. I know you're in there. I saw the car outside. Please. The knocking rattled the front windows of the house. The fuck? I heard Gabe scream. I heard him stomping toward the door. I rose to help, to stop, to do something, but Allison kept an iron grip on my shoulder, shaking her head fervently. Hello? Is someone there? I heard a voice. Please. It was a different voice, feminine this time. Yeah, I'm coming. How the hell did you people find this place anyway? I heard the door unlock and fly open. You left the light on for me. The foo-dash, I heard Gabe cry out, but it was cut short. There were pained gurgles, the sounds of flesh being torn into. Then I heard Maria scream in terror. There was a crash, as if something massive had collided with the furniture in the living room of the cabin. Help me. Oh my God. Gabe. It got him. Help. Don't run so fast, Maria. I heard Gabe's voice call out. I can barely keep up. What? I think she stopped running, because all I heard was a scream. There was a click and a loud bang. Dave had brought his hunting rifle with him. I heard a shriek, inhuman and unearthly. Another bang, followed by another shriek. I don't know what the hell you are, but you aren't leaving alive. Another shot. Why not? We could all be friends here. Maria's voice chided. Silly boy, silly boy. Bang. Silly boy, Gabe's voice mocked. The gunshots stopped. I heard a grunt and cry of pain. Then I heard Amanda. Dave. Oh my God. A crash. Then the house fell eerily silent. Allison clenched my shoulder like a vice. Footsteps resounded, heavy and purposeful. There was a knock at our door. Hey man, we're ready to go. I heard Dave's voice call out before another knock resounded. Come on, silly. Maria called. It's early enough for us to get a head start on the day, exclaimed Amanda. This thing was using my friends' voices. I felt the bile creep into my throat. I could barely choke back vomiting as Allison looked desperately at me. Allie, baby girl, why don't you be a good little ranger and open the door for Daddy, eh? I've got so many things to show you. The color in her face drained completely. I stared at the door in horror as the voice continued. Daddy doesn't like all this hide and seek. I'm gonna come in. The knocking went from gentle to furious, violent banging. I saw the wood begin to splinter between the planks reinforcing it. Allison looked me dead in the face. "We don't talk to the thing in the woods," she murmured. "Understand?" I nodded. The door exploded and Allie threw the covers over our heads, shielding us from the brunt of the splintering door. Then the calm befell everything again. I could hear it more clearly now. Every step it took sounded like the creaking of ancient branches. "Where are you, baby? Talk to Daddy." The thing called as it moved deeper into the room. Suddenly, I felt a pressure on the bed. Powerful, spindly branch-like objects wrapped around my form. "What's this? Anything to say?" Dave's voice cooed. I felt a sharp, stinging pain in my thigh, and as I glanced down, what looked like a collection of gnarled branches woven together to form a claw was driving itself deep into flesh. Allison's hand shot over my mouth. I wanted to scream out in agony, but I bit my tongue. I bit so hard the coppery taste of blood flooded my senses. The world was spinning. The pain was excruciating. No crying, no pain. Something raked across my back. My eyes bulged as I felt warmth trickled from my back and begin to cool on the sheets beneath me. "Aw, that's no fucking fun," Gabe cried out, and then I heard something else. A mixture of animals roaring in unison. Bear, mountain lion, wolf, deer, boar. It was a cacophony of beasts, and they were pissed. I heard slamming against the shelves, with splintering and glass shattering. "Nothing? Nothing?" Many voices cried in unison. "Talk to me." I said nothing. The thing in our room violently slammed itself into the walls and the decor. It raged for what felt like agonizing hours, and I lay there bleeding. Finally, the noise stopped. "Fine," came a voice neither of us recognized. "Fine." I heard the thing stomp away, and the front door was torn from its hinges. "Fine." I heard a scream outside. We lay there for a while longer, and I felt myself growing lightheaded. The pain was excruciating. When Allison pulled the covers back, I spared a glance at clock. 3:45. A little over an hour. That's all it had been. I wanted to laugh, but as soon as the cool air of the outside hit me, I passed out. I woke at the hospital. Evidently, I had been unconscious for a little over a day. Allison was sitting in a chair next to my bed, bandages covering many small cuts and scrapes. She told me that it took her some effort, but she was able to haul me into the car and get us into town, and that she was sorry for a few bruises on my body that I had likely sustained during our flight from the cabin. She told me that she had gone up with the sheriffs in the morning to show them what had happened. There were no bodies, just a few pieces of gore and plenty of blood. She showed me pictures she had taken of everything that had happened. The cabin was wrecked, the floors, the shelves, the furniture. Everything was destroyed. It looked like she tried to avoid it, but I saw the streaks of where my friends had died, too. It has been 2 years. I haven't gone into the woods, or camping, or fishing since then. Allison and I are married now. I guess a shared trauma like that brought us together. We stay in the desert now, away from the trees, but there have been some nights where I swear I could hear Dave calling for me. Allie assured me that it was just bad dreams, that it didn't come down from the woods, but it didn't help to ease my fears. If this doesn't convince anyone to avoid the woods, then I have only one piece of advice. We don't talk to the thing in the woods.